Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about whether a man with tattoos can be fully accepted by a large clan of Mormons.
And spoiler alert, it seems like the answer might be yes, especially if said man with tattoos can deliver 4+ children to the gorgeous daughter in question.
Yes, that's what really matters. A little housekeeping before we get into Grant's Hometowns episode today. First, you may notice that I look like a little droopy on one side. I'm slurring a little bit. My endodontist was only and is only ever available during the time when I prep and tape this podcast. So my anesthetic has not worn off yet. I'm so sorry if that leads to any lack of clarity with my speaking.
We're really
but
trying,
don't worry,
guys.
It's not a neurological situation. I'm fine. I just needed a root canal finished. So
Claire is dealing with that. Over on Rich Text, we did release a whole recap episode about my wedding, which was really fun. And also, we are going to be covering the finale of The Traitors. I'm so excited. Also, over on Rich Text, you can find those episodes at claireandemma.substack.com.
And of course, you can check back later this week here on Love to See It for the recap of the big finale of Love is Blind, Season 8, the Minneapolis edition, which, I mean, the Lauren and Dave show is really heating up. And
guys,
they're gone. So what's the finale even going to be about? Who's left?
Look, I know that a lot of people dropped out of Love is Blind because we just were in the pods for too many hours. I appreciate that. But I will say it has gotten a lot juicier since the pods.
Yeah. The last couple of batches were pretty rich in, honestly, mostly Dave making me so pissed, but some other things as well.
And we have already actually seen the finale, so I can say it's worth watching.
Yeah, I did enjoy the finale.
Yeah.
I don't always enjoy a wedding episode.
No, neither do I, but I enjoyed this one. And I've been seeing that there is like some interesting stuff that's going to happen at the reunion. So a lot going on. Yeah.
So let's dive into Grant's visit to his 4 finalist hometowns.
We've talked about Claire,
this. Yeah.
I thought this was one of the more interesting hometown episodes in recent history.
Well, we still have so much to learn about these women. We barely know them. Grant barely knows them. We talked about how short the season has been, but then Bachelor Data actually did a breakdown showing that it's really 2 full episodes shorter than previous seasons.
Yeah.
And they haven't done such a short Bachelor season in like over a decade.
Really wild. And it is very confusing. Like, it's harder to buy in. I know that it's always short. Obviously, we accept that about this show, but this is making it even harder to buy in for me.
I feel for Grant. It's going to make it really hard for him to make a decision of such magnitude in the timeline. And then there's people like Zoe who feels fairly very insecure about not getting a one-on-one. She definitely would have gotten one in a normal season. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is so confusing. And then it's left to Grant to like explain away why that's the case in a better way. That's just like, well, I ran out of slots and we had to go to hometowns.
Right. I had barely any one-on-one slots. I'm so sorry that I failed to fit you in time. But like in a normal season, I would have. He can't say that. He can't be like, they shortchanged me 4 one-on-one dates.
So instead, we're just rolling right into hometowns with her. So we start with a cold open this episode because there is the big question that we outlined in our intro. Litia has never brought home a man who isn't Mormon, and Grant is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, he appears to have learned enough about Mormonism at this point that he knows that his tattoos and earrings are a little bit outside of the norm, that the fact that he drinks. Sometimes he's like, occasionally I drink. That is obviously against the Mormon faith. So he's learned a little bit. And he's like, that little bit does not super align with me and the person I am. So this might be a tough meeting. I still feel like this was not dramatic enough for a cold open. I think this episode did not call for a cold open. None of it was very dramatic, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, you're right. I don't think we needed this. It was an interesting moment, but I don't think we needed it teased.
Yeah, it was interesting in the context in which it happened.
Well, exactly.
So back in LA at the beginning of the week, we see Grant putting his rolly suitcase inside a convertible and reminding us that he himself doesn't have a huge family. His parents are divorced. His mom is remarried. And he really feels like growing up, it was just him and his sister because his mom was focused on supporting the family and his dad was dealing with his addictions. And he really wants to be close with his partner's family and kind of build the ideal family on that foundation.
I feel like that is the theme of this Hometowns episode, and it's so present in every single hometown date.
So Irish music begins to play. Yes, it's the Dropkick Murphys because Grant is indeed shipping up to Boston, or actually Newton, Massachusetts.
It's in the region.
He's seeing Juliana, who actually derives from the other Catholic ethnic group that historically ran organized crime in Boston, the Italians.
They were like, look, we gotta use this song. We haven't had a Boston hometown in a little bit.
It was just sort of jarring to have the Dropkick Murphys and then her immediately being like, I'm going to show Grant what it's like to be an Italian.
In Newton. And you're like, oh, I thought we were doing Irish.
Yeah,
okay, whatever.
Irish American heritage. So Grant is really excited to see Juliana because their connection is, quote, intense, romantic, physical, emotional, mental.
All the things.
It's mental. And she greets him outside in the park with a normal hug, not a run and jump hug.
No, I feel like they're becoming a dying breed, the run and jumps.
Yeah. The more scrutiny there was on the run and jump, I feel like the more people have backed away from it.
I mean, I get it. It's like a lot of performance anxiety.
Yeah.
You'd just be out there being like, am I jumping high enough? Am I going to be caught properly? Am I going to look stupid? And I'd probably get halfway and be like, you know what? Let's play it safe.
Yeah. They're like, this isn't fun anymore. Like, people are going to be grading this on a 10-point scale. So she's like, I'm going to show you how us Italians get down here in Newton. And apparently what happens is that people just yell Jules at her in the street.
She knows everyone. It's just a small Italian town. Yeah. Everyone's family.
And her family, she makes it sound like, is the biggest deal in town. They're very well known. She's like kind of a big deal, especially in Little Italy, Newton, which is the portion of Newton that they are touring. And I wanted to take a moment to discuss her look, which is like club on top and casual on the bottom. She's got like a diamond style choker on and a tight black tank and then light wash jeans and sneakers. I know this is the look now, but I just like really hate it. It looks like you're halfway done changing for the night.
Yeah, it's really giving the express tank tops that I had like 100 of as a teen and tween.
Yeah, it's like a basic like going out top sort of look.
With like a shelf bra.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was what I always wore as a going out top because I couldn't be buying all of those like fancy ones. I was like my cami with a shelf bra.
Yeah, it was like the cami from Express or whatever like piece of flammable material. I bought at Forever 21 for like $5.
But it is like the little diamond necklace, like she's being fancy, and then the white sneakers and light wash jeans. I don't like this high-low mixing. Juliana takes him to a slice joint where the guy behind the counter sternly tells Grant to watch out because Juliana has a big family. And he does hold his hands out like he's measuring how big her family is. And for a moment, I was like, where is this going?
Yeah, like, what's happening here? Oh, okay. Family. Yes, large family. So they make heart-shaped pizzas together and like flirtily just throw flour in each other's faces. They are so into each other.
Yeah, they
I feel like they want to lick
each
other's faces.
They do. I do think that the throwing flour thing to me is so performative that it annoys me. I'm like, there's no way that you just wanted to throw flour at each other. You just thought that this was like a cute thing that people would do in a rom-com.
Yes.
And so you're doing it for the camera.
I mean, all of The Bachelor is basically like badly approximating a rom-com.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
It just ends up kind of taking me out of it because I'm like, oh, in that moment, they were like, now we're going to do the cute thing where we throw a little bit of flour at each other. We did it. We're so adorable. They stop at a florist to make a bouquet for her family, and they go to an Italian bakery to make cannoli for her family.
This did make me want a cannoli.
Of course. And Grant loves this. He's like, I'm seeing her culture. This is amazing. It reminds me of when I first met her and she brought me a cannoli, which was amazing. Like, he's soaking it all in. But Juliana's getting kind of nervous because her family is very protective, especially her Italian dad, Carl, who's going to have some tough questions for Grant because he's an Italian dad.
I really, from the promos, thought it was going to be so much worse than it was.
It's so clear that Carl wanted to sort of campily play up what a tough dad he is and thereby gave the editors so much to work with.
I know.
But it was so cartoonish that I was kind of expecting it to be a joke. The way that he acts when he meets them was so over the top.
No, I quickly realized, but I was like, man, those editors must have been thrilled because when you just play the snippet, you're like, oh my God, it's going to be like a JoJo Fletcher father situation.
Grant is about to get like hate crimed in Newton.
Yeah, but no, that's not actually the vibe, thank God.
But she does sit Grant down to prepare him. She's like, my family is going to be really worried that you're going to hurt me and send me back to a dark place like the last guy that I brought home.
I was like, what happened with her ex? It sounds bad.
I know. This is a tried and true Bachelor type of woman who had an ex who just fucked her up so bad that her family is afraid to ever see her go on a date again. Yeah. Grant will be meeting not just her parents and her sister, but also some friends and a bunch of aunts and uncles and cousins and second cousins.
I was delighted that she does indeed have a cousin named Vinny.
I know. Imagine being a cousin named Vinny. You must get that all the time.
I mean, it's a great film.
So they bring a stack of pizzas and cannoli boxes to meet her family. I noticed that they had what looked like 4 small to medium-sized pizzas for about 50 people.
It's more of an offering than an actual meal.
Yeah. Everyone gets half a slice of pizza, max. And the backyard is just full of people. Her dad jokes that it's only 30% of the family.
This is when I was like, oh, I see. Carl's got jokes.
He loves making jokes. Like when the night's over and he's like, thanks for everyone for being here to a wonderful night. Now everyone go home. You're not welcome here anymore. That's the kind of dad Carl is. And after Carl leads them all in a toast to meeting Grant, things get a little testy. I think we have a clip.
Grant's probably a little intimidated. This is a big family. You just kissed my daughter? In my house! Hey, get a room. This is a very protective family. We got to get to know this guy a little more. When somebody brings somebody into the family, we want to test him a little bit to find out what his intentions are. Last time that Juliana brought anybody to this house had to be a decade ago. I have seen her heart broken in the past. I'm a big Italian family head, and we protect our own, and if there's something going on with Juliana that isn't feeling right, Dad will know. I think Mom will know too. I know Dominique will know.
The music, the way they scored this, I was like...
The vibes are so ominous, and I think it's partly the mob movie associations that they are definitely trying to evoke.
I was like, this score feels like The Godfather.
Right. They're doing The Godfather with like the romantic Italian guitar music. Then they have like the firelight from the backyard lighting kind of playing over Carl's craggy face, and he's like glowering at his daughter's new boyfriend. It's definitely evoking storied tropes about Italian American like violence. So they're tiptoeing around that. But I think that Carl is also having fun with those tropes a little bit. He's
Oh,
like, you're all
yeah.
scared of me because I'm like the big Italian dad. Like, you're kissing my daughter? Get a room. But it's all in good fun.
Honestly, he like has a pretty good vibe. I was relieved that he was joking about that trope rather than actually earnestly falling into it. So
Yeah.
much of The Bachelor has felt like in line with the way that our culture is regressing. And so I was like, oh God, we're going to have a really uncomfortable dad conversation. And instead, it felt normal and lighthearted.
I feel like he really enjoys that he is able to evoke that sort of threat without having to like really
when actually being like fairly gentle.
Right. Like that, it's great to both be able to intimidate people and also to be like,
not be violent towards them.
Just kidding. Everything's fine. So Juliana sits with her sister Dominique and immediately starts tearing up and saying she really likes Grant and she just knows he's her guy. They align totally. He makes her feel safe. And Dominique is like, whoa, okay, you really like him. This is great. Like, I'm not worried anymore about Grant being a fit for Juliana. I'm just worried that she's going to get hurt because she's so into him. And meanwhile, Grant is talking to Juliana's mom, Donna, and
who
showing
stunning.
I mean, can you believe it? Like she and her mom and sister are gorgeous.
I see you all have the same face. The stress.
And he shows Donna his wolf tattoo, and he talks about how he learned that Juliana also identifies as a lone wolf, and they connected over having learned to be alone. Which is sort of an interesting thing to tell her family because she felt alone because she feels like her family wasn't there for her at that time.
Yeah, I'm still so unclear on what happened because she didn't actually say.
Right. She and Zoe both have that sort of thing where they're like, Grant, we're similar. We both have this trauma, but they don't really actually explain it in the way that he has explained his.
Right.
But I think that, again, we see that like Juliana is the one person who kind of brings together both of the things that he wants in a partner around family. She's someone who really relates to him on feeling lonely, on having felt isolated from her family and having to take care of herself. But she does have this huge supportive family that he desperately wants to marry into.
Oh, yeah. And you could see the way, like, in his conversations with her aunts and cousins, like, he is delighted by being embraced into this big family. And he sees that family structure as something that he could learn from and emulate, and something that he desperately wants.
Yeah. So he talks to Carl, and Carl again tries to really put the fear of God into him. He's like, as a dad, something is really bothering me because I see how Juliana is with you, how she smiles with you. And I think we got a problem on our hands because you've got some hard decisions to make and the collateral damage may be Juliana. So he's basically just like in a threatening way being like,
she loves you.
She loves you and it'll be so hard for her if you choose someone else, which is what the parents always say. And Grant beams. I think it's really interesting that his reaction to this is not to be spooked or to seem like comforted. That weighs on him. He's thrilled. He's like, Juliana will be really hurt if I break up with her. She's really into me.
She's really into me. And what we're seeing here is Grant's fears about, making the wrong choice or choosing someone who's not actually that into him, which is always a fear of the lead. Like, those fears are being assuaged.
Yeah. And he's excited to tell Carl, like, I'm so serious about your daughter. I'm so attracted to her character, loyalty, and realness. There was a situation in the house where she really spoke up, and that meant so much to me. I really respected that.
Grant loves a narc.
He does.
He loves really the right narc, only the right one.
The right one with long, beautiful fingers. And he says, I'm falling for her. I think she's a woman who can help me grow and I can help grow. He's just saying all the right things. And Carl is eating it up.
Oh, yeah. Carl is just bowled over.
He's like, I love hearing that she's like that with you because I always tell my kids to be introspective so you can become the person you want to be. And like, it seems like you guys are really well suited in that way. And then Grant says another one of the perfect things. I think we have a clip.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I respect you and I respect what you've done, keeping your family together. In my life, I haven't always had that, so to have you as a father-in-law, I would really appreciate that because my father was a great man and I learned a lot of things from him, but I'm always looking to learn from, men that provide for his family and to stay there. I see such value in that and I appreciate that.
Give me some.
Yes, sir. Oh.
I thought this was such
Wow.
an interesting thing for him to say. Like, it's a very sweet moment between the two men, but it also is such an indication of how Grant views masculinity and like the role of a man within a family structure and the ways in which he feels like what he grew up seeing, though he loves and respects his parents, is not the way like he would want to structure a family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's clear that has informed how he sees his role to a large extent because he feels his father really abdicated that part of his role. I think that that's exactly what a father-in-law would want to hear in this situation, which is like, I know that there are things that I need to know to like step up and be the husband that your daughter deserves.
And I could learn from you.
I can learn from you. I'm excited to learn from you.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
A dad's just like,
Welcome
I'm
to the family,
amazing.
son.
You see that I'm amazing. You're going to be amazing just like me.
Yeah.
Hell
so
yeah.
Carl's a huge fan of Grant after this. He's like, we're the same, Grant and I. Level-headed, have the right priorities. We get each other. So he goes to talk to Juliana, and she admits that she is nervous about this, that she could get hurt, and then she could end up back in a dark place. But she feels like Grant is like so solid and so good for her. And she's like, what did you think? And Carl's like, I love the guy. Love him.
Carl is super fan. Grant super fan.
He's like, he seems ready for a relationship. I like no problems here. Great guy. Congratulations. I will protect you no matter what. I love you, but like Godspeed. And so this was basically an unmitigated success.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not a hitch.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I mean, we already kind of knew, but it's so clear after this, like Juliana is top 2.
Yeah. And they really did the perfect, like if they had coached her family on how to play this, they could not have done it any better by presenting the sort of the constructed nominal obstacles that then Grant can easily clear. And then their warmth and acceptance is even more meaningful because it feels like it is hard won. Like it gives you that cinematic arc. Like it makes it feel like you're so bonded afterwards. Grant and Juliana sit on the bench of feelings and he tells her that he is falling for her and she tells him that she is falling in love with him and they kiss. A giant American flag hangs behind them on their parents' porch.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Let's not think for now about what we know about Juliana's likely politics.
Yeah, I'm going to dissociate from it.
And as he gets into the SUV, she says, bye, boyfriend. In the moment after this, she says that the intensity of her emotions is really starting to strike a nerve with her.
I don't know what that sentence means, but
I don't think Juliana knows what it means. It's sort of like the depth of my feelings is really starting to make me feel deeply right now.
I'm like, okay, I get it. You have really intense emotions and you're trying to communicate that to all of us. And you know what? We got that. And she says, I have to say goodbye to him and I don't know what I'm going to do while I wait, but it's going to eat at me because he's going to be doing this with like 3 other girls. It's just scary.
She's let him past her walls that she's built so high. But it's okay because maybe he's her person. But what if she's hurt again? It's so hard. Juliana is like in by far the deepest, I think, of anyone at this point.
I agree. And I also think that she's shaping up to seem like the most natural match for Grant.
Yeah. Like, as we said, like everything about them kind of aligns in the way that he wants. And they share certain struggles, but also she offers him something that he feels he's been missing. They're both, I think, people who seem to value career, but also really value family.
Yeah.
and she is so into him.
Yeah, and he's into her, and he has been since truly night one. So I see it with them. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get into Zoe's hometown in New York City, baby.
Can you keep up?
And we're back, and we are in New York City.
I was
for
like,
Zoe's
oh,
hometown.
Hello, Union Square.
Okay,
yes.
The close reading I did of this scene, because they're trying so hard to trick us with the kind of close focus shots where you can't really see what's in the background.
Well, I was so
them in the
confused. I was
park.
like, did they shoot? Because it was clear they were in Union Square Park, but then some of the B-roll looked like Central Park.
No, they were 100% trying to fool us, Emma. They intercut shots of them walking through Union Square Park with B-roll of carriage rides and like waterfronts and stuff to make it seem like they're in Central Park.
I was like,
that
guys,
is 100% what they did.
I see the big box stores that line Union Square.
I was like, I used to make this walk to work every day for like 7 years.
I know the Sephora there intimately.
Yeah, you cannot fool me. But they actually almost did fool me because of the way that they aligned those Union Square Park shots and the way that they
the B-roll was very
B-roll.
intentionally deceptive.
And then I was like, wait, how did they get from Central Park
to Union
to
Square?
What is definitely Union Square?
I was like, what's happening here? Okay, no, they're in Union Square.
They're in Union Square.
Which is, Union Square is great. It's a very central location.
It is. And they do a very low energy but successful run and jump hug, the only one of Hometowns Week. And it felt a little half-hearted, but they did it. Then they kind of walk through the park, and Grant says, I'm from New Jersey, so this is very familiar for me. East Coast. And I was like, do you mean that you've been to New York, or do you just mean that generally
the East Coast
reminds you of
vibe.
the East Coast? Much like New Jersey, you are in New York City. I couldn't quite. I assume he's been to New York.
Yeah, I mean, if he grew up, I don't know where in Jersey he grew up, but a good portion of Jersey is you're going to have gone into the city fairly regularly.
I feel like even if you live
in like South Jersey,
in South Jersey, it's not that far.
No, but you might be more likely to go to Philly in some parts of Jersey.
I think I'm going to say I bet he's been to New York City before.
Oh, he's definitely been to New York City and probably spent a good amount of time there if he grew up in
He's
New
a
Jersey.
business boy.
He is a bit, yeah. It's shocking to me that Grant has not lived in New York City, actually.
Well, maybe he will.
He won't.
Zoe tells Grant that she loves New York because the people are so kind and encourage her to do more, and they really inspire her and have been so welcoming to her. I loved this.
Me too. I was like, yes, justice for New Yorkers. People are always like freaked out. Like New Yorkers are so mean. They're not mean. They have a purpose.
They're busy.
They're busy.
They're a little impatient.
They don't suffer fools. But New Yorkers are actually very kind and welcoming to newcomers.
We have our own code of kindness, kind behavior. It doesn't involve saying hi to every person who walks past. But if someone needs assistance with something like on the subway, for example.
Exactly.
People are going
to show up. Same. We were talking about this on my wedding recap episode because we rode the subway to our venue and like the kindness of random strangers was abundant.
Yeah.
And I feel like Zoe is like, you get it. You get the vibes of the city. It's energizing. It is ultimately actually very welcoming, and you can really find a community.
Yeah. That's why New York has been at the top of the cities, honestly, for so long. So she asked if he'd move there, and he says yes. Of course, he's
good.
Again, he's a business boy. And Zoe tells Grant that even though she's in tech, she's actually very creative. For example, she loves to model, which is something I've actually never really thought of as a creative profession, but it is.
It is. I mean, you are literally performing for the camera.
Yeah.
There is a lot about like garments and angles and lighting. I mean,
it's like using your body as an art object.
Yeah.
Which, as someone who's really bad at that, I don't like to admit that that's a real thing, but it's true. Like
it's difficult.
You have to know how to move and hold your body, much like an actor.
As people who have done a limited number of photo shoots, it is difficult.
It's really hard. You can look at my wedding photos and it's obvious that I'm doing a really bad job. Um, so they're doing a photo shoot with Brides Magazine.
This was so funny to me because this just really felt so much more like a one-on-one date than like a hometown date.
It's really transparent that Zoe did not arrange this, that this was arranged by production. I know that that's usually to some extent the case. Like, it's not like they're personally going out and handling all these arrangements, but it's not like Zoe has a relationship with Brides Magazine. Like, they come into the shoot and they're like, Zoe, we know you've modeled before.
Right. No,
they're not like, we've loved having you work for our magazine.
This is just like a one-on-one date that they didn't get. And they're like, great, this ties back into Zoe's career. This will teach Grant something about her. And it will also kind of give them an opportunity to speed up the emotional process because they're like acting out being engaged.
100%. And in his In the Moment, Grant says, Zoe and I have a great connection, but it's a little surreal taking engagement photos.
He's like, we've barely hung out, actually.
He seems spooked. Like, this is too real for him because they're doing a photo shoot where they do like a proposal scene, engagement photos, and then a wedding scene. And he's like, oh God, I have to like pretend that I'm getting engaged to Zoe. That's
But then it goes better. Then it goes better than it seems to initially. Like he gets into it. He's obviously finds Zoe very like beautiful, very compelling, very impressive. And so he loosens up.
Yeah. They're both very photogenic. He's taking the coaching from Zoe. She's like, this is bridal. So like soft smiles, you know, that sort of thing. And she puts on her final look, which is like this gorgeous full ball gown, bridal gown.
Stunning.
And he's like, she definitely looks good. She's beautiful. There's so many positives that have come out of today with Zoe. She's got it all. I feel like we just fit. I was reminded during this date also that his sister is a model.
Yeah.
And actually, they are not dissimilar looking. So I wonder if there's a little bit of like that sort of, this person feels so comfortable and familiar to me because she has certain like, which is not uncommon. Often even on like Love is Blind, when they haven't seen each other, you'll meet the person's like family members and be like, wow, they look exactly like the fiance.
Yeah.
But he seems to have that like comfort with
definitely,
Zoe.
which is why she can like skate through hometowns and like come out ahead of Dina ultimately.
Right, even though they never have had a one-on-one date before. So afterward, they change into their civvies and they have champagne on the roof. And
it looked like such a beautiful New York day. Like, can we talk about the weather that they seemed to get?
Gorgeous, like a perfect fall day.
I was just
in
like,
New York.
they just like a light jacket. They're in the sun. There's like dappled sunlight on the roof. I was like, we're in the middle of winter, and I'm excited to get some of that back in spring.
Having a glass of champagne on a rooftop in New York City.
I mean, there's
on a
nothing
crisp
better.
Fall day, perfect. I miss those days. And he tells her that he had fun modeling and that he understands a lot about her, maybe more than she thinks. He's been watching her. And he says he loves seeing her dive in and do her thing modeling. And he knows there's someone in there who's ready to be loved. And he can relate to her in a lot of ways.
Someone in there. It's just a funny way to put it. It's like not on the surface, whatever you're presenting, not that lovable. But I'm sure, I know that's not what he meant. But
no, but there is something coming through during this whole conversation that feels more like him observing her than him being connected to her.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like saying, I understand a lot about you, maybe more than you think. Well, why doesn't she know how much you understand about her?
Well, probably because you've spent like a total of 2 hours together.
Right. But it just makes it sound like he has a relationship with her that is based on observing her from a distance. And the same thing comes through by saying like there's someone in there who's ready to be loved. Like not you, the person that I've been conversing with, but another you that I've observed. That's
we're gonna get
more
there.
disconnected.
Yeah, we're gonna get there eventually. And yeah, he's sort of parroting the thing that they connected on, which is you haven't had the ideal childhood and neither did I. Like this is their big point of connection.
And Zoe hasn't had a one-on-one. So this is really her chance to open up more about her family.
I know we learned so much more about her.
Yeah. And she's had to kind of dive into those things in less than ideal settings because of the little time they've had together. She doesn't really get that fully into it here either, which makes sense because this isn't a night portion of a one-on-one. It's like the end portion of the day date because then they're going to meet her family. And so she ends up not going super deep into the trauma that we know is there. She sort of obliquely is like, well, your dad had certain vices. I relate to that. Because of those vices, you won't be meeting my adoptive parents.
We don't.
And she's not, again, like, as we always say, they're not obligated to disclose any of this stuff. But it's interesting because the show structure is built so much around those disclosures that it is hard to not disclose them without it seeming like there's an impenetrable like wall around this person, or like you don't really understand what you're supposed to understand about them. Like that's just how the show
that is how
introduces
we
people.
learn about people and connect to them emotionally. And we're not saying that's necessarily like a good or fair thing to the people who are on the show, but it does create kind of a disconnect.
Yeah. Well, it's just the way that this show chooses to structure the development of these relationships. And so when she can't just not do it, instead she sort of talks around it.
Right.
And
But what
that
we learn
feels
is that
evasive.
her adoptive parents are not in her life currently, and they will therefore not be at this date.
Yeah, so he'll be meeting her sister Faith and her Aunt Charisse and Uncle Dave and close friends of hers.
I loved her aunt and uncle. And her sister.
No, and her sister. She and her sister are extremely close.
Oh, it's so sweet. It's so sweet. So they head, I guess, to like the New York City suburbs to a beautiful Airbnb to meet the family.
Yeah, it definitely is giving Airbnb.
Yeah, which she nods to. She's like, obviously, I didn't grow up in New York City.
Right.
Yeah. And then so it makes sense that they would have gotten an Airbnb somewhere nearby.
And she is so excited to see everyone. She's weeping as she hugs her family and friends. And then she talks up to them like how kind and supportive Grant has been. And her Uncle Dave mentions that she seems really happy. And they ask Grant about Zoe, and he says that he sees her as strong and unwavering. And they love that. They're like
you get
that's it. Yeah. But her Aunt Charisse has been quite skeptical about the show and the timeline, as she should be, and she's ready to grill Zoe. So Zoe sits down with her aunt and uncle, and they ask if Zoe's happy, and she like was connected to Grant from the beginning, and she says yes, absolutely. They ask if he compliments her, and she says she thinks he does because she is a strong woman and she needs a strong man. And that's who Grant is. And she's like, he can handle every side of me, not just the model side or the tech side of me, like past partners.
So rough to be a beautiful woman. I mean that sincerely. Like the way that clearly there are people in her life that are like, have been like, I don't wish to get into any of your other like intellectual interests because you're a talented model, or like, I think that those creative pursuits are shallow and useless.
Right. Like the fact that it was so clear to me how those things probably broke down just from her evoking that.
Right.
I was like, it's so funny to imagine a man being like, I can't handle the tech side of you. And yet I'm sure
it's
she
true.
has encountered that. I can't handle the model side of you. I would need to be a stronger man for that. Grant is that strong man. He loves a woman who's beautiful and smart. And Charisse feels a little better, but she still has some things she needs to learn about Grant because she's very protective of Zoe. Meanwhile, Zoe and Faith spend some time together
They're
weeping.
just like weeping together. It's such a sweet sister. We have two very sweet sister relationships.
Yeah, I love it. They're
it's so
both
nice.
very close. And Faith is like, I just want you to be happy and in love. And Zoe says that Grant has been great, if not perfect. And Faith is like, well, no one's perfect. And Zoe's like, I'm perfect. But she's like, Faith says, I feel really good about even the way that Grant walked in with you. It was so clear that he's comfortable just letting you shine.
I thought that was such a lovely observation, and definitely something that can be an issue in a straight relationship.
Yeah.
Like I've definitely seen my friends with partners whose insecurity is palpable, or like the need to be the shiny one is palpable.
Yeah.
And I thought
true.
that was an interesting observation for Faith to make.
Yeah. I thought that was really lovely. I feel that Grant really is drawn to women who he sees as like impressive.
I agree.
And then he also wants them to be like so nurturing and maternal, but he's like only women who don't have high powered careers can be nurturing and maternal. He's like, how do I resolve all of this? But he does let Zoe shine. But then Faith hears that Zoe hasn't gotten a one-on-one date, and she immediately is like, oh.
Which, yeah, girl, we all know she can't win. She basically can't win.
Yeah, she literally can't.
Like, it's never happened. It's not gonna happen. So it's an awkward position for the family to be in.
Yeah. So she asked Grant about this, like, why hasn't my sister gotten a one-on-one? How did she get here without a one-on-one? And Grant's explanation is unfortunately not, my season is 4 one-on-ones short of a full deck. He's like, well, we were holding back, and so we weren't really ready for a one-on-one. And then in one of our last conversations, she really opened up, and that opened me up, and I was like,
poor
that's
guy
what I
is
needed.
trying.
And now we're locked in, and our connection just started later. It wasn't too late. It was right on time.
I think it was too late, Grant, but I appreciate the way you're framing it.
How is he going to break up with her without saying, I'm sorry, my other connections are just further along?
That is exactly what he's going to say.
We just couldn't catch up. Like, he's blocking himself off from this exit every time he says.
I mean, he was put in a shit position here. Like, what is he going to say?
Yeah. No, I agree. She should have gotten a one-on-one. If they had given him even one more episode, she obviously would have had a one-on-one. So Faith also asks if their strained relationship with their parents would make him nervous. And he says no, he actually relates to that because of his own family's history.
I thought it was notable that Faith was like, Zoe has a strained relationship with our parent, and she says, my parents aren't here. Zoe basically has a strained relationship, which I hope will be fixed soon. So I was like, oh, interesting. Seems like Faith does not have the same level of estrangement in that relationship, potentially.
Yeah, interesting.
Who knows? Who knows? And it's their business. But
yeah, they don't have to tell us, but they are tantalizing me because I love mess. I also think that, of course, there's nothing Grant can say other than no, it won't put me off. But I think that it might be true that it doesn't put him off, but it's also true that he's really drawn to people who have a big, close family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think it's something that he's consciously like, oh, I'm icked out by this in any, or threatened by it or disappointed by it. But I do think that he sees a big family unit that he can be absorbed into as like a real plus for a future relationship.
Yeah. And that's what ends up happening on The Bachelor, is that all these little, I don't even want to say flaws, but all these little concerns that you might have that normally get kind of
worked out over time,
or pushed aside. You meet someone, you're not, like he says, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm so put off that you don't have a relationship with your family. You're into them, you keep dating, you fall in love,
it goes.
You work those things out. Here, he's like, I've got 3 other ladies who are really close with their huge families, which is something I've always wanted. So, like, it's not putting me off, but you are lacking the impetus forward in this respect that I have with these other women. You're not usually going to be, like, comparing in that way and getting to choose.
No, Zoe is actually someone that I think if she and Grant met in the real world, that they would have been attracted to each other and they could have dated.
Right, 100%.
But like the structure of this show is not going to put her in like the top position.
Yeah. And like Grant is never going to say, you know, it's not going to make me nervous. It's just that like I have some better offers on the table. Some of these women come with like friends and family packages that are more lavish. They're more well appointed. There's nothing wrong with her package. It's just, you know, if I'm comparing the benefits here. So she asks if they've said I love you yet, and we have a clip of this bit of the conversation.
Have you said that have y'all thrown like I love you yet?
No,
Okay.
we haven't. Right now, I like Zoe a lot. And right here is like, and I'm falling in love is up here. But getting to know her family is like bringing things closer and closer.
sure.
You know? So
For sure.
that's where I'm at. And the more I get to see her for who she is, I think those feelings will continue to grow.
Awesome.
Ooh, yikes. If he likes her, I mean, part of this is also the timeline of the season.
It just is the timeline of the season. I'm sorry. This is crazy. They have brought him to hometowns when he is still at a point with most of his top
where he's
women
like,
when he
I
can't.
like them, fine. I can't even
He's
see
got
myself falling for her.
He's
I'm
got
like,
a top 4 woman about whom the strongest thing he can say is that he likes her a lot. Like normally they have to say things like, I am falling for them.
I can
My
definitely
feelings are
see
really
her
strong.
being my life partner,
Yeah.
but I need to go through the rest of the process. And
Here
if
he's
I didn't
basically
see a
saying-
future with her, I wouldn't be here. Instead, he's like,
Right.
I mean, I do definitely like her.
I like
great.
her. If we continued to date, then we would definitely continue liking each other more. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, this is just Grant is doing his best and he is being honest. And so the family, Faith is like mollified because, again, like there's nothing else to really do in this situation.
She likes Grant.
And
he
Grant
seems really
likes
into
Zoe.
Zoe. And I think that she is like trying to be optimistic for Zoe. She's like, love does take time, but when you know, you know. So I think she's sort of thinking maybe they've had this breakthrough. And
Right.
if
And
she's
maybe
right
it'll
for him.
Skyrocket, especially after this week. Because as we know, if you make it past hometowns, you do get a lot more one-on-one time.
And like, I'm sorry, what else can you do when you're a family member?
Nothing
like,
besides
the
be an
process is
asshole.
underway.
Right. Like your family member is in it. All you can do is be like supportive and make this part of the experience not painful for them. When family members try to step in, all it does is cause extreme emotional turmoil for everyone.
Right. And then like if they do get hurt by the lead, then you have to deal with the fact that your loved one now sort of blames you and is like you put them off.
No, there is nothing you can do except be supportive.
Right. So after this successful family meeting, they sit on the stoop of feelings. There's no bench at this rental.
Wow. I mean, that's the least they could have done.
But Grant is feeling great. He's like, I see a future with Zoe. Our connection is stronger than it was before.
I would hope so.
I would hope. And she says that she feels confident and hopeful. He agrees. They kiss and they say goodbye. And it kind of all happens boom, 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 like I just said. There's no like lingering or like sensual touching. It's like good, calm, nice.
He's just
dust
so
hands
much
goodbye.
further ahead with Litia and Juliana.
Yeah, it feels sort of just like checking off the checklist. It's not passionate.
I think they have a good connection, but he has a great connection with both Juliana and Litia.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
As she drives off and her in the moment, she says she hopes it's not too late for them. It definitely is, and she knows it. But like, what are you gonna do? You're here. You go as far as you can.
You're in it. You're in
Maybe
it.
You got to be Bachelorette. Fingers crossed.
Soldier forth, Zoe. I did really enjoy her on this date and her family. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, Litia's hometown and the rest of the episode.
Can you keep up? I like love it.
And we're back, and it's time for Litia's hometown in Wyoming.
I was like, oh, So Litia's family is extremely rich and they have multiple homes. That's what I'm gathering here.
Did they own that home?
That was the vibe I got.
I to be honest, it looked like such like an Airbnb vacation home to me.
Maybe it's like a timeshare. It seemed like, or maybe that's just the place that they vacation and they always rent a different home there.
I was very confused because I fully wrote down Utah until
because
little
she
Chiron
is from
said
Utah.
Right. I wrote down Utah and then the little thing came up saying Wyoming and I was like, oh, they're not in Utah. And yeah, so she basically is like, home was always at my grandma Candy's house, but since she's passed, we've gathered in different places, including Star Valley, Wyoming.
So yeah, maybe I guess maybe it's just a place they regularly vacation and they don't own a house. I don't know.
Or I mean, the thing is that like it's a big family, so I think she's also saying like there's no one central place where we get together because that was my grandma's place.
But
it's
true.
like all these wings of the family. My family always like vacations together in like upstate, like near the Finger Lakes, and
right.
we
So
just
your
rent a
hometown
house.
would be there.
Totally would be there 100%, but like it's not like we own a place there, so I guess that's why I just assumed
I think
that.
I was just like, I'm like, doing stereotypes of beautiful Mormon families in Utah.
I think
Lots
the
of
most
money.
likely options are the different parts of the family live in different places and they take turns hosting, or this is a place where they like to meet for a big
Yeah.
getaway.
It's clearly, I mean, she says the town, so it's clearly a place that they've spent significant amount of time in.
Yeah. So Grant is not a country boy, as he tells us many times. He's actually a city boy. And
he knows all about the East Coast.
He's like, I know about the East Coast, but I do not know about being out in the brush. And he recalls that he has told Litia that he's falling for her. She hasn't expressed her feelings for him yet, which I actually didn't even clock.
Same. I was like, how did I miss that?
Well, like Grant, we feel it from her. Like she's not saying like I'm falling. She's not saying the Bachelor mandated
but it's so
phrases.
Clear that
because she's like
she's
gazing
so into
purely
him.
into his eyes and being like,
I
want to give
him
you
a
a family. I'm like, yeah, okay. I think she's falling for him. He's like, I see her care in her eyes and I know she'll be a great wife and mother. And she meets him in a camo hunting jacket. And she's like, I'm a hunter girl today. And he's like, yeah, you're a hunter girl.
For a minute, I was like, oh no, are they going to go hunting? Luckily, no, they're just riding horses.
It's just an aesthetic.
It's just an
a hunting
aesthetic, and she looks very cute.
She also doesn't do a run and jump, just a normal hug. And then they do ride horses together, which is something she did a lot growing up with her family. So, I mean, yeah, it seems like they were around a lot of horses and large plots of land. So I assume they're not impoverished.
Well, I guess that maybe I was like, oh, do you know what's expensive? Riding a lot of horses.
She's like, I hope Grant's ready to cowboy up. And as they ride, dreamy music is playing through the sun-dappled grass.
I mean, Wyoming is gorgeous.
It's beautiful. And he's had wonderful weather for all of these hometowns.
I know.
Say.
Lucky.
They hit the jackpot. And he tells her that his mom is a country girl, so she would really love being here with Litia. And in her ITMs, Litia is expressing a lot of complicated feelings about the day. She's like, I'm falling in love with Grant, but it's hard to say that to him because when I've had those feelings in the past, it hasn't worked out. It feels different with him. He's so caring and sensitive, but I'm still so nervous to lose that. And she also says that during the date, he's going to get a more comprehensive view of what Mormonism means for her family. Oh, I also want to mention, because it comes up again, that he asks about her nicknames growing up, and she says her aunt always calls her TT. And he's like, I'm going to do that too. Just me and your aunt. That's going to be our special pet name for you. TT. I'm basically like your aunt. It's our special thing. So then they dismount and they sit on a bench by the water. And Litia nervously tells him that she has never brought home anyone who wasn't Mormon.
That is
And
intense.
I feel like she was trying to like prepare him for this by telling him that in the past she has mostly dated other Mormons. And then she held back this one specific detail.
Yeah, she's like, to be clear, like never. I've
Never.
never dated a non-Mormon.
At least not seriously enough for them to come meet the
Right.
family.
And like obviously she knew going on the show that Grant was not Mormon, so one had to assume that
yeah.
she was
That they're
prepared for that.
prepared,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I was Grant, I would be like, wow, especially because he doesn't know a lot about the Mormon faith or exactly what she expects from like how she wants to
Yeah.
raise a family.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I feel like the more you knew about it, the more you would be like, wow, I'm uncomfortable. I'm scared. This is going to be a big change
Yeah.
for me. This would be
or
a
like this
big
is
upending.
a potentially very large cultural gap, even if her
Exactly.
family is super accepting, which they seem to be.
Yeah. No, I would just, I mean, I definitely would be nervous about potentially having that big cultural, like, and religious
Yeah.
gap to overcome either through conversion or through, like, trying to accommodate.
And
the
that's
two
not to say
faiths.
it's, impossible by any means. But
No.
it is something that they would have to deal with.
Yeah. But I feel like part of his, like, chill factor about this has been the fact that he doesn't know much about
I know.
Mormonism. He's like, faith is so important to me, but like I'm not scared, even though I don't know much about Mormonism. I'm fine. And then he says, my mom had a very strict, narrow idea of faith growing up, and I am worried that it could be an issue with the family because I saw it cause arguments a lot. And he says, maybe it's because my mom and dad weren't equally yoked.
This is the second equally yoked we've
I'm
heard
telling you.
from a man on a reality dating show in the last like 2 weeks. Obviously,
Everyone is talking.
Devin's family talked about it on Love is Blind. I was unaware of this phrase until 2 weeks ago, and now I'm like, oh my God, has it been everywhere all along?
You don't consume enough, passively consume enough stay-at-home mom content from Christian influencers.
Got to get on that.
More and more people are talking about being equally yoked. So basically he's saying that his mom and dad were not equally committed to a conception of faith that was the same. And so it caused arguments and division between them about how to follow their religion.
I actually would love to understand more about Grant's relationship to his faith, because obviously it is very central to his identity in a lot of ways. And at the same time, he seems like he doesn't want to feel the strictures of like a particular practice in his family unit.
Yeah. It seems like he has a more of a vibes-based commitment to Christianity, which I think is not uncommon.
No.
Because it's a good vibe. It's like, care about people. God loves you. Great.
Sure.
I'm
Who can
in.
argue with
I'm
that?
in. But he's also, he's like afraid of being locked in conflict with a
Right.
spouse who is like, you have to do these things to
And he also brings up,
religious.
like, even if he's not locked in conflict with a spouse, is he going to be the root of tension between Litia and her
Right.
family, which would also obviously be
Yeah.
not great.
He admits that he's nervous, anxious, and scared because he loves a list of synonyms that he's feeling, but he has an open heart and mind. So this is the cold open moment. They approach it's basically like a mansion made out of log cabin.
Yes. Same mansion log cabin.
It's quite a look. And her family like bursts out to meet them. Her mom hugs her and then like pulls Grant in for a hug as well.
They're so warm.
And
it's
He's
so
me-
many people.
so at first it's like her parents and her brothers and probably like their wives or girlfriends. It's a smaller group. She has 2 brothers, Ethan and Jackson. But then they like go around the corner and are met by like a surging horde of Mormons in the grass. Aunts, cousins, uncles, kids, a grandpa. And Grant keeps going like, wow, wow, in the terrified voice.
He's like, there's so many white people.
Yes, it was a lot. Like this, there were like aesthetic shades of Get Out here and there.
That was all I was thinking about. Like not that was like the vibe necessarily of her family members, but like aesthetically,
yeah,
I was thinking a lot about Get Out.
Yeah, like the home on the
Sort of
peaceful
tucked
plot
away.
of land, tucked
Yeah.
away. Yeah, and Litia introduces him to a little niece or cousin who looks like she's around 2 or 3. And I thought this was a really funny conversation.
So cute.
She's like, "Are you allowed to watch Bachelor?" And the little girl's like, "No." And Latia's like, "Why not?" And she says, "Because they kiss like that." And she like waggles her tongue, and so does Litia, like, "Blah." And I used to see these kind of things and think nothing of it. And now that I have a couple small kids, I'm like, I can't imagine telling them, you can't watch that show because people kiss like this. Blah. I'm like, people kiss. Who cares? You can watch a show where people kiss. I don't care.
Yeah, I feel like a 3-year-old's not going to be fazed by a little tongue kissing.
I think it was just like a little gesture at the sort of like flavor of conservatism that's just like children can't see adults kiss. And I just like, now that I have kids, I'm like, oh, that really is something I don't care about at all.
Yeah, you're like, why would that negatively impact my child even a little bit?
Yeah, they don't watch The Bachelor because it's on after bedtime.
Yeah, you're like, they're asleep.
Once Max came up while I was literally watching Too Hot to Handle on a weekend, and I was just like, Max, mommy's working. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You're like, you're going to learn so much about cutout bathing suits.
So much that, and he was like, not interested. He's like, okay.
Yeah, he's like, it's not relevant to my interest.
As a 3-year-old, what do I care about women in cutout bathing suits? I simply don't. And then there's like a family game of tug of war, which Grant loses. And fortunately, it's not some sort of test of strength for him to enter the family, just all in good fun. There is a friendship bracelet exchange and a dirty soda bar. Like he's learning like the things that we know as consumers of Mormon reality television.
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and Real Housewives. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, a dirty soda bar? I know all about that. I'm well acquainted. Thank you to the women of Secret Lives.
Yeah. I feel like we don't actually get so deeply into Mormonism as a religion, its history, its beliefs. It's more like dirty soda and also having babies.
Well,
are kind
Claire,
of the two things.
What is more palatable
right.
to a wide audience? Is it the very uncomfortable history of Joseph Smith? No.
No. To be fair, who among...
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, what religious tradition doesn't have some uncomfortable...
When you really dig into it.
It's just that, well, I think the thing with Mormonism is that it is like homegrown and a lot more recent history.
Yeah, it's, well documented. So Grant is loving this. He's like, she has a big loving family.
And she does. They're
And
really sweet.
And he's like, I'm serious about Litia, but I do wonder how my kids and I would fit into this picture. Like, would we have to be Mormon? So it's time for him to talk to the people who can answer that question. Litia's parents.
He talks
I don't know, and Grant doesn't know how Litia feels about that. That's a conversation for another time.
Hopefully.
So he talks to Litia's dad, Rob, first, like presumably her stepdad. But it seems like, they have an extremely close relationship.
she refers to him as her dad.
Yeah. And he's like, I love that you're a man of faith. You're not Mormon. That's okay. That's fine. What matters is family, because no amount of success can compensate for failure in the home. You got to keep that family together, even if you're not Mormon. And then he says this. We have a clip.
If you look around, I mean, most of her uncles all have 4 kids, 5 kids, and she's like, well, I'm 31 already, so, I only have so much more time left on the clock, so to speak.
Right.
So I think that she feels that, there's a little bit of a time element in the whole thing. And so I think Litia, for a long time, has wanted to get married. I mean, that's something that's very prominent in our culture. And just as long as he has faith and that he has values, and that he's going to treat my daughter with respect, and that he's going to love her. I give him my full love. I trust Litia enough to know that she'll know when she finds the right guy for her.
I felt so complicated about this conversation.
Yeah.
In that clip, you're like, there are pieces of this that are lovely. Like, I trust my daughter. I want my daughter to be treated with respect by a partner. Like, it doesn't matter that you don't share our exact faith. That doesn't mean we won't accept you. And yet there's also this feeling of like, her womb is empty. It needs to be filled 4 to 5 times.
The framing is in a gentle way. Litia's 31. She's on fire sale. Like, we're not holding out for the Mormon guy. We'll take just about anyone as long as he's nice.
And has some Christian
he believes in God. He's nice. We can't be picky anymore. We don't have the time.
She's 31.
We got to get this shelf empty. And like, it does seem like Litia wants to be married and have a family. Like,
yes,
she's been clear about
I
that.
do think that that her parents are reflecting things that she seems to actually want, but it is telling of the culture that she grew up in, the way that they are framing this.
Yeah, and like, you have to wonder how they would think about it if she didn't want that.
Right.
Because he's saying like, Litia wants this, and it's very prominent in our culture. That's important. Her uncles have 4 and 5 kids, so you do the math. You know, like, there is this thought that like she does need to conform to that, and she wants to, so there you go. Like, most people, I think, actually do want those things. Not all, but like, most people want those things. That doesn't mean that it's not troubling to see,
to center those things as like,
to see how that can be like externally enforced in this way. Like, it's nice that she also wants it, but then for them to be sitting around being like, well, a good
she's
Mormon
31.
girl has to get married. She's 31. Like,
there's
run
a
out
real
of time.
time element there. So,
and again, it's like, we talked about this before. Like, I had a timeline in mind. If I were 31 and single, I would have been freaking out. I would have been like, I needed to be married yesterday so that I could be pregnant by now. Like, that's the timeline I had in mind. So I understand that she could personally have those feelings of like, I'm impatient to get started.
I think what makes me a little uncomfy is the way that her parents are talking about that. Like, it would be less weird if it was coming directly from Litia and she was like, look, what I want is to have 4 children, and I know there's a limited number of years where I'm going to be able to do that. And so I would really like to start a family sooner rather than later. You know, that would not strike me as odd, but it's like the way that her fertility is like such clear public domain.
Right. Like, they all have expectations for how many kids she'll have. They're thinking about the compromises they're willing to make so that she can have those children that they think she should have according to their culture. Like, it's rare, I think, to see that level of like familial pressure and investment on one of these shows, and like how many kids that like in 2025, it's rare to see it be that explicitly like, we expect her to have 4 to 5 kids and she's running out of time. So Grant talks to her mom, Maury, and he tells her that he's falling for Litia and he sees a future with her. And Maury, like Rob, has a very clear agenda here to tell Grant not to hesitate to start a family with Litia, because he doesn't need to worry. They are not going to be bothered that he's not Mormon. They just want him to get in there and get that uterus full as possible. She's like, please feel comfortable being yourself with us. There's no expectation from us. She's clearly trying to say, like, there's no expectation from us that you will
like convert,
be Mormon. Yeah, that you'll convert. She says that core value and belief that God is important and he will be important as you raise your family together. That is the most important thing. We really trust Litia. And she's like, Litia is ready to start a family as soon as you are.
That was wild. And Grant is like, oh, okay. Like,
okay.
He's probably like, oh my God, we met 3 weeks ago or whatever.
Honestly, if I were Grant and I didn't want to start a family within the next 2 years, I would be having a really serious conversation with Litia about like maybe this isn't the right relationship for you, because she is 31. If she does want 5 kids, she probably needs to be on a super accelerated timeline.
Hopefully she'll have twins.
Hopefully she'll have twins. Jesus. So after this, he's so relieved. He's like, I have the answer to my big question. I don't have to be Mormon to be Litia. And I was like, again, do you have an answer from Litia about that? Because she is actually the one who would have to make a family with him. Like, her family can say, like, it's okay, we have our like non-Mormon grandkids over there. But Litia would be intimately involved in like creating and raising those kids. Is he sure she doesn't want them to be Mormon?
Right. I mean, I wonder if that's something that they've spoken about, or if it's just
maybe he's
I don't
keeping
know.
that for fantasy suites, but he seems so like, well, that's done and dusted. Her parents are not going to make me convert.
Or is he just assuming like she obviously knew my background and chose to come on a marriage show to marry me?
Maybe that's it.
Like,
yeah. I think there's still a real serious conversation.
I mean, I think there are a lot of
but
conversations that still need to be had. And I do think in so many ways, Grant and Litia have a great connection. Like I see how into each other they are, and they're very sweet together.
Absolutely.
But there are a lot of cultural barriers there that it just feels like there's simply not enough time to negotiate.
Yeah. And the cultural difference is just really coming through here, because as much as the family seems to really trust Litia's judgment, respect her, there's just a way that you talk about your daughter getting married and starting a family that indicates that you are accustomed to like kind of having a very clear say in that, and that like you are part of the conversation about like who she marries and what her family is going to look like, in a way that I think for most of us is kind of foreign. And Litia has a conversation with her grandfather, Jerry, next. And
This made me emotional. I thought this was really a sweet moment.
they seem very close. And we know she was also close to her grandmother before she passed. We have a clip of part of this conversation.
I was thinking the other day that my mom brought home someone that didn't look like anybody else in our family from Fiji, my dad. And you guys just loved him and took him with open arms.
He was such an easy man to love.
Yeah.
You know, and you got 3 months of him.
Yeah.
And, you know, I never hesitated for a second thinking that he would be the right guy for your mom. I think you feel like this is the one.
Yeah.
Oh, this was really sweet.
It was really sweet. I have like her family is so interesting to me.
I know.
I guess is what I would say. Like, she is so close to them. You know, they have been there for her whole life. It seems like they loved her dad, but he wasn't around long enough for her to even know him. And it's not clear to me that she has a relationship with her dad's family.
Yeah, I guess that's something that we have no idea. And we also have no idea like what her dad's familial situation was, or how they came to meet. I mean, there's so much about these women that we don't know. I think something that's also interesting to me, and I thought this was a really beautiful moment, but it did highlight to me how little we've heard from Litia about the experience of being a person of color growing up in a white family and in a very predominantly white Mormon culture in Utah. And I guess I just wondered, I wanted to hear more about how she feels about that experience.
Yeah.
And maybe she doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe she doesn't have anything to say, and that's like fully her prerogative. I'm not here to dictate how she frames that experience. But I did wonder.
No, it's true. I mean, she basically gestures that's her only gesture towards the fact
Right.
that she is like aware that there might be some discomfort with a person who is not white. And it's only to kind of say, like, you are so accepting, like, you and my family are so loving and accepting, rather than, yeah, there's no hint of how she might have learned about a not so accepting side of things. I mean, her situation is in a way sort of similar to adoption, just in the sense that, like, there is this side of her background that she doesn't seem to, from what we've seen, have any like link to anymore. Like, we're not aware of any ongoing relationship she has with her father's family. Her father is tragically not able to be part of her life. And then you're sort of immersed in this culture where you're being raised by people who, you know, in certain ways don't look like you, and are surrounded by people who don't look like you. There's often like struggles that come along with that, and it's unclear how much her family was able to like shield her from that, or how she felt that.
We just don't know, because she
Yeah.
doesn't speak to it.
And I understand if she doesn't want to. Like, this is her limited time. She loves her family. They're very close. She doesn't maybe want to get into that, or that's not what the focus is. But when they talked about her father, I was really suddenly struck by like how has she gotten to know that side of her and her family?
It highlights the gap that we as the audience have about that particular experience. And I thought it was a lovely moment because you could hear the emotion of her grandfather, like the love her grandfather clearly had for her father. And I thought that was really lovely, but it did bring up other questions.
Right. Yeah. And so she, in this moment, they're having this kind of beautiful moment together, kind of like weepy, like remembering that loss. And he says, well, I think that you think Grant is that guy for you that your father was for your mother. And she agrees. And she decides to confide in him, something she's never told anyone, which is that she thinks she loves Grant. And he says, well, if it works out, I'm happy for you. You guys fit, and I've never seen you like that with someone.
I started to get really worried for Litia.
Yeah.
If it's not her.
I know. And it could, I mean, I think that she, like Juliana in certain ways, is able to connect with him both through like a sense of like childhood loss and also the big family. But there are some differences that make me think that Juliana has an edge here.
I agree.
Like, I don't
There's just
think that,
less work that needs to be done to bridge any gaps.
Yeah.
With Juliana versus Litia's family. And like that's just real.
Yeah. So then she talks to her mom, and she says that Grant has expressed his feelings and she hasn't, because she's scared of fantasy suites, because it would hurt her feelings if he slept with other girls, and she's not going to sleep with them.
I was like, oh no, are we gonna do the Maddie Pruitt thing again?
Like the Maddie Susie thing again.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I was kind of glad that her mom was like, maybe don't jump to that. Like,
yeah, she's like, can you keep an open mind and not make it up in advance about what it would mean if he did that? Because Litia is clearly saying, like, if he were to sleep with the other girls, that would hurt me.
And you're like, okay, so obviously Litia will be getting the final overnight date.
Oh, God. Of course. That's the thing, too, is like, you talk about this, they're going to make sure the situation happens.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, yes, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's always made me feel safe and taken care of. And I think that what I'm hearing there is that she's going to give him the benefit of the doubt to not assume that he will sleep with the other women. And I'm like, I think he will.
And I was like, I feel like your mom was trying to be like, maybe it would be fine, whatever decision he makes.
Right. Like, I understand certainly feeling super weird about it. And you would want to look back and be like, our story is that he loved me so much that he was done with all other women after he met me and he protected me the whole way. But like, this is the whole point of this process is that it's so accelerated and he's supposed to be simultaneously pursuing serious relationships.
Right. He's supposed to be keeping an open mind. He's being encouraged to like open himself up fully to all relationships. And especially always in these situations, it's like the lead isn't aware of this like potential deal breaker until after the fact, which is always a disaster.
Well, if she had asked him, then it, maybe he's only not having sex with other women because she asked,
Oh, God.
Yeah. No, I think her mom is definitely trying to be like, maybe if he does sleep with another woman in this process, that doesn't mean that he doesn't care about you. It's fine.
Yeah. Her mom is like, I've seen Grant.
Her mom is like, you're 31.
Yeah.
Your womb is empty. You are on steep discount right now. We got to move this merchandise. And she tells her mom that she does think she loves Grant, and she says that she can kind of pinpoint this moment, which I think we all can. It was palpable. She's like, hearing about how lonely his childhood was made me want to give him a family that loves him because I'm so blessed with a family. And I'm like, yes, we all saw the look in your eyes when you realized that he was lonely and would like eat dinner alone in his room growing up. And you were like, I want to give him a baby stat.
She starts crying again just describing this moment.
But she's like, I haven't told him I'm too much of a scaredy cat. And I don't know. I don't know how to do that. But yeah, she's feeling things. It's being conveyed with her eyes and her tears and her sense of amped up nurturingness. Like she's just getting more nurturing around Grant every time she sees him. So maybe this is the moment because they're saying goodbye to her family. She's like weeping as she tells them how much it meant to her to participate. And I looked at them while she was talking to them, and like the looks in all of their eyes are just so adoring. Like her brothers and like her cousins are like beaming at her with love. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I don't know whether to be scared or touched by like the intensity of the familial love that I'm seeing right now. So I did cry a little bit because I love love. And then they sit on their bench of feelings, and she tells him that after the day with her family, she can see him with them. And she says, so many times today, I wanted to tell you I'm falling in love with you. And Grant says, wow. And he beams.
And then he says he's falling in love with her too. He just said to Zoe's sister that he really likes her, and falling in love is way up here.
Yeah. But no, everything was always happening at just the right time as he is falling in love with other women. He is deciding that he likes Zoe. That's what we call perfect timing in the biz. And Grant says to Litia, in our words, I'm cooked. And she's like, we're cooked. He's like, for the feelings to be this strong and there's still so much more to go, it's definitely big for me. And they kiss, and he calls her Miss TT, my Wyoming girl.
Oh, he's into her. And he's feeling the love from the family. I feel like he's riding high off of all of this like welcoming familial energy.
Whenever Grant is embraced by a large extended family, he gets a hit to his like dopamine receptors. Like it's like drugs. Like it's like nothing you've ever experienced. He's flying.
And he's about to be brought down right to the earth.
And you can tell he's just like, I'm going to meet 11 siblings, parents, dogs. Like, I'm about to get the biggest hit of familial love ever.
And then he's just like punched in the face. He heads to Chicago for Dina's hometown. And he's like, I love that she's smart and successful. And that she has a big, close-knit family that I will absolutely be meeting and loving today.
Yes. They meet on a pedestrian bridge and just do a normal hug. And he's like, I know you have 11 siblings. She doesn't correct him, but she has 10 siblings.
She's one of 11?
She's one of 11. She is one of those siblings.
It's confusing because she has 12 dogs. He
Like,
heard the
Grant-
number 11.
I'm like, Grant, you're a finance guy. You got to do this math. 11 minus 1 is 10. It's not 11. But he's like, I'm so excited to meet your 11 siblings. And Dina's like, I can't even correct that because we have bigger fish to fry. She's like, I have a lot to tell you about the day in this sort of foreboding way where immediately I was like, he is not meeting her family.
I know. I felt so bad for Dina on this date. It's just like, it's rough.
So first she gives him a brief tour of their surroundings. Believe it or not, Chicago has coffee shops and restaurants.
Are you telling me that a major American city has places to drink coffee and eat?
I wouldn't have believed it until Dina showed me.
But thank you. My eyes are not deceived, I guess.
And she's clearly preoccupied because she knows she has to find a place to sit Grant down. And they sit down on some steps. I guess no benches presented themselves. And she says, my family is very traditional. My dad is an ordained deacon in our church.
I was like, wait, I didn't. Oh, okay.
What? Well, an ordained deacon can be sort of like basically a community leader. It's not like a priest typically. Like I'm not sure what religion she's in, but often like a deacon is just kind of like a very like a pillar of the church, like a local pillar of the church type who has some like church responsibilities, but it's not like he's like tending to the flock.
Guys,
constantly.
clearly you can tell I don't know anything about church.
So her father is clearly, if not a member of the clergy, he is like very
involved. But I just feel like we hadn't heard. Again, I'm just like realizing how little we know about these women. I was like, oh, what is Dina's religious background? I actually don't know anything about this.
Yeah. And we're not going to learn much more. But
no,
the idea,
we are not.
She's like, the idea of his daughter being with a guy who's dating 25 women doesn't sit well. So yada, yada, they all refuse to come meet you today.
This just made me feel so bad for her because it's not like it's a surprise that Dina went on this show.
Yeah.
Right? And it also is clear that family had initially said that they would be there.
Yeah.
And then all like got together and made a collective decision that none of them would appear on camera.
The fact that all of them said no paints a picture of her family culture that I think is interesting because often in these scenarios it'll be like, well, my dad didn't want to come or like my parents couldn't make it, but you're going to meet my sister and my brother.
Right. She has so many siblings.
They're a united front. Like it's almost like this family is like a nation in itself. And they have a legislature.
Odd dynamic because she has to, like, her disappointment has to come, like, has to sort of be buried away because she still needs to present a good face on behalf of her family to Grant. So that he doesn't like write her off.
Well, it's a really tough position for both of them because, of course, Grant is immediately like, well, I care about Dina. I want to know if she's okay. That must have been hard for her. And he wants to like check in on her.
How offended should I be by the fact that they are like backing out in this way?
And also just like he is trying to make a really hard decision. He does need this information. And so he wants to support her, but also he's in the position of being the person who's like not going to feel comfortable moving forward.
Right.
Because he's not getting what he needs.
It's just a really bad position for both of them. And it made me frustrated at her family on her behalf.
Yeah. Zoe should send them a thank you note though.
I know. Man.
She's gonna get to go to where are they going? Dominican
Republic.
So she's like, it's not about you at all. It's really just about the show. They're so traditional. And that was in her intro package too. She's like, I'm the rebel. I'm going on The Bachelor. And Grant is like, definitely, no, of course, it's fine. I understand. But like, he's thrown. And she says, I understand an engagement isn't something to take lightly. So you're going to meet my friends and that will, I think, give you a sense of me and they'll get to kind of grill you like my parents would. And so it'll be sort of like meeting my family. And then if we do end up together, you will definitely meet my family. They just don't want to be on the show. And Grant is like, this sucks, but I respect it because it's real. That's how life is. It's not always going to be the way you expect. And then in the moments, he's just like, it's very bad that I'm not meeting her family.
I'm extremely concerned.
To her, he's like, it's like, I'm glad actually that I'm not meeting your family because this is real life. And that's what I want, something real. Cut to in the moment of Grant being like, Dina's cooked. This is done.
Well, it's just unlike Love is Blind, where the families have like a few chances to show up or can like get on a FaceTime maybe off camera. This is the one moment.
Yes. And also, he's got 3 other women
whose families did show up.
Yeah.
Like,
so they go to a bougie pumpkin patch in the city with carnival games. I was a little bit baffled by this being
the Chicago date.
They spent
the whole
entirety of the Chicago date at this bougie pumpkin patch.
Look, they're trying to get filming locations that will take them. Okay.
No, yeah, totally. The mood is a little down, but they're like playing the carnival games. And deep down, you can tell from their in the moments that are intercut with this, they're both very aware that this could be the end for them, that like her family won't meet him. And then a bunch of hot girlies with Dyson air-wrapped hair rush in and swarm them. It's her 8-ish besties. There's so many I couldn't even count them. And Dina weeps as they hug her and meet Grant. It's all the people most important to her outside of her immediate family showed up for her. And her tears like signal to Grant, these people matter to Dina.
They are very
their
important.
Opinions matter.
He loves to see Dina cry. He loves it.
He loves seeing the women smile and cry. He's like,
yeah, no, not in like a I want
emotions.
these women to experience pain way, but I think he's like moved by the shows of emotion towards their friends and family. Well, especially Dina, for like Dina, who kind of has a harder exterior.
She self-identifies as an ice queen.
Right.
And he's not looking for an ice queen. He's looking for a warm, nurturing woman to enfold him into the bosom of her family and also give him children that they will love with an openness and ardor that children have never experienced before. So he needs to see
and
this.
Always have family dinner.
Right. He can look at this Dina and be like, this is how Dina will weep when our children are dropped off by the babysitter after school. So Dina tells her friends that her family opted out, but they are her family also. And they know more about her than her family does, which is what people always say when their family can't come to one of these and their friends come instead. They're like, actually, my friends know more about me than my family does. Yes, that's how friends are. We can tell things to our friends that we can't tell our families. That's accurate. So they all get drinks after the initial meeting, and Dina tells them a little bit about Grant. We have a clip.
He's used to like being the guy who does everything, is the provider, is the giver, is like that's on it, and I'm like, hold up, as a man should be, and I honestly love that about you, like that's something that I look for in a man.
That's her best friend Enrita saying, as a man should be.
And I was like, oh, okay, yep, we get it.
Listen, there are 2 ways to look at this. One is traditional values, men should provide and do everything on their own, bring it back. The other is so many women who are accomplished and successful and take care of themselves in their homes end up with scrubs who are used to doing nothing themselves.
You know what?
And
that is
are
true.
drags on the whole household.
That is true. It's like you do want a man to do literally something.
Yeah. Like, if you're a competent woman, you want to marry another man who's competent, or otherwise he'll be like, oh, you can do that, so I don't need to do that. You just do it so much better than I do.
I think I'm just, like, wary because of things we've seen, you know, floating around about also Dina's potential political affiliations. I'm like, huh. What which vibes are present here? Who can say?
Hopefully a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Is that the best we can hope for? So Enrita and another friend, Lauren, pull Grant aside to be Dina's surrogate dad. They ask him what he's looking for in a wife, and he's like, someone who's driven, a giver, like Dina is those things. And I'm like, so literally, you're just telling these people the things that you like about that person, those are the things you're looking for. Because I don't think that if he were with Litia or Juliana, he would say driven, a giver. He would say the top 2 things that he thinks of when he thinks of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, as we've said, Grant isn't exactly sure what he wants, but he knows that he likes these women.
Right. He's like, I like these women. Who
so
can
I guess
say
I'm
why?
looking for like her.
I must be looking for her because I really like her a lot. He's like, I love how brilliant and beautiful she is. We could really push each other, which I love. And Lauren says that Dina has a big heart and a lot of love to give. And he says, that's the Dina I want to know better. In other words, he doesn't know much about her heart being so big.
He's like, she told me she's a cold ice queen.
Yeah. But I'm really wanting to get to know the part of her that's soft and loving and nurturing, maybe even.
I did at least see tears one time from her. So I'm feeling better about it already.
Yeah. And Rita says that Dina would need her family's support. And he's like, yeah, I'm a little nervous about that because I am close to falling for Dina. But this journey is short.
I'm like, Grant, you're already falling for 2 other people.
I know.
Cooked. In the bad way.
In the bad way. And yeah, I mean, this is the place where he almost, I feel like, was going to say, like, this journey is shorter than usual. Like, it's literally so short.
It's so short. And
Why
love
do
how
I have so little time?
Grant's always trying to frame these things in the positive. He's like, it's definitely not holding me back that her family's not here, but it could be make or break.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Like, later he does the same thing. He's like, maybe it made us stronger, actually. This huge gap. But did it?
This made us stronger and closer, and also it will be the thing that ends our relationship.
And also I'm thinking I need to send her home immediately.
Yeah. Dina tells Rita and Lauren that she and Grant are very in tune and she could see him being her guy, and she says she's falling for him. But she does say she would want her family's blessing before an engagement. And they're like, but could you get there? And she says, yes, if I was given the opportunity. If she was given the opportunity to pursue this, she would probably really thrive in this role. Grant then chats with some of the friends and asks if they think her family will accept him and this process in the end. And they say, well, they don't just let anyone in, but once they do, you're in forever. They'll really embrace you. They're excellent people. They will support her in whatever she ultimately chooses.
They're really trying to be reassuring.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that it's just hard to convince someone they will support her in whatever she chooses when they are literally not supporting her in what she's choosing right now.
It's hard to separate
have a hometown day with
him
Grant.
and their relationship from like the show, which is allegedly what's being rejected. But like,
right.
It probably sure feels like a rejection of their relationship and of Grant specifically.
And even if it is just of the show, she is choosing it, and
right,
they are
and she's
refusing
on the show
to support her.
Exactly.
In that, so, and then they say they haven't seen Dina so smiley and happy before. And like, if you really love someone, don't you keep trying?
He's like, but I don't. I'm just
give up.
maybe almost falling for her, and I'm already falling for 2 other women.
Yeah, she's honestly like 3 out of 4 on my list of relationships and how far they progressed towards being in love. So
I just felt like her
friends
were really just like begging Grant not to hold the family ghosting against Dina. And he's like, I won't. I will.
I won't. I will. That's what friends are for. And they do their best.
Friends.
And as they're like, if you really love someone, just keep trying. You know, you're going to get there. They're going to accept you. And he clearly is not sure what to say. So he's like, oh, that's great to hear. Group hug, everyone. Because he is not reassured by this.
And this is when he like fully lies to the camera and it's like, this definitely brought us closer together.
Yeah.
So
but also, like, it could have brought you together close together in a very specific way,
like, which we like did not see.
Well, I think that like there can be a way in which like you built your relationship by dealing with this challenge together,
right?
But is that as much of a progression of closeness as you would have gotten from meeting her family together? Is it the kind of progression of closeness that's going to make you feel better about getting engaged to her? I don't think so. It's like they literally got closer on this date. Yeah, they spent more time together than they did before.
Right.
But it didn't bring you closer than you would have gotten if you'd met her family.
Well, especially for Grant. Like, I think that there have been leads who it would be less of an impediment to not meet the family.
He needs that family.
But
he needs it bad.
Grant, that is so central to his whole ethos, to his all of his desires are centered there.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, I'm sorry. I've been getting great receptions from families around the country.
And it's feeling good. I was flying
really
high from the families. And I got nothing from you.
Literally nothing.
The friends don't hit quite the same way.
He's like, friends, I've got friends. We've all got friends. Like, I'm not looking for friends. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make in-laws.
Family. Yeah, I'm here to make in-laws. And they can be an aunt and uncle. In-law aunts and uncles will cut it.
As long as they are technically family,
right?
They're good.
I need like one sibling, you know? Instead of a bench of feelings, Grant and Dina stand by the pumpkin patch where they've spent all day to say goodbye. And when they part, Dina says that she now even more wants Grant to meet her family.
Yeah.
He won't.
Sorry. I mean, I thought it was indicative of how this date kind of went that they didn't even get the bench of feelings. Their goodbye felt
they're
very
just like,
like
okay, gotta go,
perfunctory.
bye. Well, and it's also how their second goodbye of the episode goes, to be honest.
The exit interview.
Yeah.
So back in Los Angeles, Grant sits down for beers with everyone's number one bachelor, Joey.
I love this. I was like, I'm not even mad at Warner Brothers / ABC for putting a completely useless filler segment into this episode because I love Joey so much.
No, they should have him on every season.
He has to, he should have to star in every season. I'm so sorry. I mean, I want him to live happily ever after with Kelsey. But
no,
like,
the problem is you can't do it again because once things end with Kelsey, like the shine is off. You know,
Yeah, I
you
know,
have to
but
believe that he
he's
pair bonds like a
perfect.
penguin or a lobster in order for that.
he's just, I love him.
I know he's just so great. And he's there to give Grant really good advice, like be an amazing short king, medium king, be an amazing medium king with lovable curls. No, he's there to give him advice like take a beat when you feel something and trust your gut. This is the week when it really hits.
It's really original advice that we obviously could only get from Joey.
I think
So
he
thank
got
God he's there.
basically the same advice from Jesse Palmer, whose season was a fiasco.
Yeah.
He cautions Grant not to skip ahead to the end before he goes through the steps of the overnight dates. And he basically is like, Kelsey, she was nice, but I didn't really know it was there until Fantasy Suites and until she met my family. And Grant tells Joey that he didn't get to meet Dina's family and it rubbed him the wrong way at first, but then they tackled it together. And Joey's like, yes, problems can be good because they show how you overcome problems together. Not in this case, though. In this case, it was bad.
I do think this meeting, Grant mostly just wants Joey to tell him how to dump someone that he likes. He's like
really
ill. He's ill and he has like not had to actually have like a one-on-one conversation with anyone after he's broken up with them because he has not broken up with anyone on a date.
He hasn't. I think part of what's happened with Grant is that Grant, as we know, is conflict averse. He doesn't want to break up with anyone.
Grant does not want to hurt anyone. Grant does not want to break up with anyone.
But also because of the short season, I think that they did not have as many opportunities for him to have the exit conversation. Like,
right.
You're having a lot of rose ceremonies up to the end where like 4 or 5 women are going home. You're having a lot of not that many dates, not that many one-on-ones. So you're not going to burn them on people that you're not going to bond. Yeah, I think all of his dates were used on people that he saw as really top contenders because they had 4 fewer one-on-ones than usual.
Right. And then when you like send someone like Alex or Serafina home, it's like, oh, well, there's 3 of them. So bye, guys.
Right. Like Alex and Serafina had really good one-on-ones and did not
get it. Any conversation.
Any
just
conversation.
Like wish you the best of luck, bud. Very odd. Very, very odd.
So
and so
made
he
it
is
to
like
hometowns.
panicked.
He's never done this. Yeah.
Grant is like
do
ill. He's like, I'm going to have to break up with someone that I like and then probably talk to them.
Yeah.
And Joey is like, Grant, you're a finance guy. You're a business boy. You like numbers, but you can have feelings also. Listen to them. Stellar advice, Joey.
Listen
Thank you.
to your heart. I mean, Grant is like, it's funny that his whole thing is like, I'm such a finance guy because his actual brand on the show is that he is such a soft boy who is so in touch with his emotions.
I'm like, Grant, like being in touch with emotions really doesn't seem like Grant's problem.
I'm starting to think that Joey did not watch Jen's season. Because no one is ever like, well, that Grant, he's so
by the books and he's numbers based.
Logical to a fault,
yeah.
I would say.
And like, I don't know, Grant is always talking about like the deep well of loneliness that that he was consumed by during his childhood and the way that his father is an incredible man despite his struggles.
And how will he ever fill that hole of creating the perfect family with the most lovable woman in the world if he can't continue
he's like
on
never
this journey?
talking about finance except on that one finance date they did.
Yeah. I mean, for my impression of Grant is that being a guy in finance is mostly about attracting the perfect woman
And getting cars.
and getting cars. So, meanwhile, the ladies are together chatting about their hometowns, and the final four seem to be on really good terms. Even
Yeah,
Zoe,
they all
she's
clearly
mended
really
it.
like each other, and they're like laughing about the fact that like obviously it's weird to fill each other in on these intimate family dates with Grant.
Yeah, but they do. Like they all
They do. Yeah, they're
seem-
like, look,
yeah.
we're all friends here. We know what our jobs are.
And everyone's like excited about their hometown dates except for Dina, who is kind of quiet and withdrawn. And she finally says to them that she, you know, wasn't able to have her family meet him, that they canceled kind of last minute. And she says in the moment that if she were Grant, it might give her pause that the family didn't show up. She's really thinking about this, and especially hearing that the other women's went so well. She must know like what's coming for her.
All of these women have had such extensive conversations with Grant about the importance of family. So yeah, I think Dina knows, and you can see the other women are like shocked, but also trying to be so supportive. Like, of course, like it's so nice your friends showed up. Like, yeah, that's
I'm sure
great.
That's just as good. And then they go to the rose ceremony, which is at a gorgeous theater.
I forgot to Google exactly where this was, but it looked really beautiful.
This is often the rose ceremony that takes place at like an airplane hangar.
Airplane hangar. I know. I think that's why I noticed it, because they weren't in an airplane hangar.
I'm so glad that they weren't in an airplane hangar. And Zoe and Dina are both nervous. I think they both
we're like,
have good
seems
reason.
Correct.
Yeah,
You're the
it's
only
like-
ones who should be.
Yeah, is he going to send someone home because their relationship is so far behind, or because their family wouldn't even meet him? It's like those are the two options. Juliana and Litia, in recognition of the fact that they are the front runners, are bridesmaid matching in like chocolate brown gowns.
I mean, the color of the season.
And Grant arrives. He's wearing like almost like a teal suit.
I thought this was not one of his best, to be honest.
Yeah,
Adam walked in while I was watching the scene. He was like, "That's a terrible suit."
There's something. It felt a little like maybe something that you would get at like H&M or something. Like it just didn't have the heft.
It's just like Grant is like a kind of like a fashion horse a little bit, and so this was sort of a boring, not amazing choice for him. But you know,
it's just
fine.
it's a stunt. It's a stunt color.
Yeah,
you know. He tells them that they all have wifely qualities, and he's going to keep pressing in until he finds his person.
And next week is overnight dates.
I mean, he literally is going to keep pressing in.
Not with Litia.
I was like, sir, this is family programming. I know that Litia's niece or cousin is not allowed to watch this show, but my children are if they stay up that late.
And they obviously understand the art of double entendre.
I was like, does he understand how that sounds? Like, what do you mean you're going to keep pressing in?
He definitely does not. You can just see it's one of those things that you probably say, and then you're like, oh no.
Yeah, that's what he said. So the roses go to Litia, Juliana, and Zoe. Going home is Dina, who gets the first Grant walkout of the season. And then they sit on a bench of feelings.
But neither of them are emotional. I was so struck by like how perfunctory this seemed. It's like they're both very supportive of each other's position. And they're like, it's been wonderful. We have spent some time together. Grant actually says, I was developing feelings for you. I was like, oh, they've already exited? You literally just broke up with her.
The axe has fallen.
Like usually they're like, I feel really deeply for you, but I just couldn't quite get there and I was farther along with other people. And he's like, those feelings, they were developing. And yesterday. So I was like, oh, you like just filmed her hometown.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I didn't even clock that. And they've already withered on the vine. Yeah, no, it's sort of, it does feel like an exit interview. Like they're both sort of calm and they're like,
right, like,
they
and
have their little thing to
doesn't
say.
Seem that hurt by it. She seems fine. She sort of seems to know like this was the right thing.
Yeah. he like thanks her for teaching him what to look for in a woman.
And I was like, she's a woman, Grant.
Yeah.
That made me, I started laughing. I was like,
well,
oh,
he's
so
nodding to the fact that he didn't know about equal
partnership.
Yeah,
and he's like, I didn't realize that women could provide some things too. And thank you for teaching me that so that I can go receive it from another woman.
And Dina says that Grant knows what he wants and she wants him to find it. She will always treasure their time together. She's learned a lot about herself. She's ready for engagement and marriage. And she's like, I got close with you. I liked you a lot, but you need to go with your heart. And I hope you find exactly what you want. So this seemed very prepared. Like she's reading her Oscars speech off the little card.
I was like, this is very mutual. I'm glad they both seem fine about it. And in the limo, Dina says she really, really tried and had an open heart. And we have a clip of what else she says.
I did really try. I'm somebody that really shields myself when it comes to those types of connections. And he let me feel very comfortable being completely honest. And I did have an open heart and I took it as far as I possibly could. But like, I want to be absolutely 1000% sure that he's my person. And I want him to feel the exact same way about me. And even tonight, like that was my prayer. Like, if he is not for me, I don't want that rose. If it's not me and him at the end, I don't want it. Just to get further along and like feelings and then be heartbroken. He's gonna make somebody so happy and I think they're gonna make him so happy too. But I think the fact that I can get so close to someone like I have with Grant in such a short period of time it feels good. And I think it's really promising for the future.
She does not seem upset at all.
She's fine. She's like, I liked him. I liked him fine. And he liked me fine. And we really taught each other some things. And I'm sure he'll make someone else very happy.
Yeah, no tears.
Zero tears.
It's also a little, like, she's almost like, this was a really heartening experience. Someone was within 3 women of proposing to me. I'm going to bring home that hardware sooner or later. I mean, like, this honestly made me feel like she was a little relieved.
Yeah. I just think they both knew it wasn't there is what was very clear about this exit.
Yeah.
And, like, if it's not going to be, if she's having this realization, better to go home now and not have to do a whole, like, song and dance about it and spend the night together.
Yeah. No, that's probably true. I mean, part of it, I feel like might just be how short this season is again. It's like you just haven't had as much time to
that's
sort
true.
of trick yourself into being like, we're going to be together. You haven't had as much time to get attached. But like to go home at Hometowns and to truly just be like, that's fine.
That's fine. And unusual. I had a great experience. It's so unusual. Also, you know that like had he sent Litia or Juliana home, devastated.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on with Dina, but
classic Ice Queen behavior.
Yeah. She's like, I'm fine. And you know what? I'm glad she's fine. We don't want anyone to be hurting. I'm glad they're both fine.
We are still, it's Hometowns. We haven't had any tearful limo exits, and we've barely had any limo exits at all. And the ones that we've had have been sort of just like, well, that didn't work out.
I know.
It's almost a throwback to the early seasons before they realized that they could get more drama out of
when they
driving
had to, like,
them around until they cried from frustration.
And you know what? If it is just that they are like allowing these women to not be emotionally tortured, I support it.
Yes, I think it's very humane now. That's what we're seeing. So Grant tells the remaining ladies that shit is about to get real. Overnights are coming. Zoe feels like they're finally all on a level playing field. She is wrong.
They are absolutely not. But, you know, I support her delusions to just get her through the next week. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait 2 weeks to see these overnights because next week is Women Tell All. And I think we know what that means. Carolina and Dina are going to hash it out on stage.
Oh, it's going to be like 20 women against Carolina.
Yeah. And also I'm like, okay, Dina, these two are definitely going to be on Paradise. All these women are going to be really auditioning hard because there's not really a guarantee of Bachelorette like ever coming for one of them.
That is, I mean, it makes me so sad. I can't even think about it. I have to believe the Bachelorette is coming back.
I think it might, but we don't know if it will come back these women in the running.
That's true. They always have like so many women to choose from. They're not reaching back to old seasons
Right.
or recruiting from outside. It's more like, how are we going to pick from the 5 perfect, well-spoken,
Exactly.
hot fan favorites from this past season? So next week, Women Tell All. The week after that, Fantasy Suites, and then the finale. And I feel like the season just began. It's
And yet
basically
it's
just
about to
February with a
end.
little on each end.
Should we get into love to see it, hate to see it?
Let's do it.
Got to start with hate to see it, get that bad stuff out of the way. We definitely hated to see Dina's family declining to show up for her last minute. That was rough.
I also hated to see the really explicit way that Litia's parents talked about her waning fertility and
Hated
how
it.
certain compromises could be made in terms of choosing her partner in order to facilitate her large godly
womb
family
filling.
being created as soon as possible.
Also hated to see the fact that Zoe's sister even feels like she has to ask if it would be a problem for Grant that Zoe doesn't have a perfect relationship with their parents.
And of course it is a problem, even though he would never say that because he knows it's not anything against Zoe. It's still not what he wants for himself. Also hate to see the way that Zoe just has no chance.
Zero. Absolutely zero.
I mean,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I also kind of hated to see how much talk there continues to be on this season about like the role of the man as the provider, which again, we love to see men participating in labor and not being just dead weight and a drain on their female partners. But the language and the vibes are a little bit retro.
A little retro.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the show, like our society,
Like
is
America.
like, now that we have feminism, what is even the point of men? Can we find a role for them? Can we make women stop doing some stuff so that there can be a role for them? The discourse rages on, and The Bachelor is here to participate. Let's talk about love to see it.
I loved that the show very lovingly showcased Zoe's chosen family and didn't at all harp on her strained relationship with her parents as some sort of failure.
Yeah. I loved the way that Dina's friends really swooped in to be there for her when her family didn't show. I loved seeing that, of course, Dina has like 8 to 10 women who are identically groomed to her, who are her soul sisters.
Just absolute
like, so Dina.
certified hottie soul sisters. Also love to see Litia's very like obvious, deep, and beautiful connection to all of her family members, especially her mom and her grandfather.
We love love.
Love
I love to see how connected Grant is now with Litia and Juliana. Like, the season has been so short and it's frustrating, but I do really buy the connection between those two women and Grant, and I hope that it works out for him in the end, despite all the obstacles in his way.
And finally, we love to see Joey back on our screens. We don't care that it was a useless segment and he had no great advice to give Grant. Crush reactivated. Yes. I want Joey on my TV every week.
Listen, he should host the show.
Sorry to Jesse Palmer. I enjoy Jesse Palmer too. They can co-host.
No, I'm always happy to see Joey again. And you know what else I love to see? The drama rating out of 10 yes drama llamas for this episode.
Very low.
It was positively somnolent. Barely anything happened.
Like a 1? Would we say this
slumberous.
is a 1? I feel like the biggest drama, quote unquote, was Dina's family not showing up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this was basically a 1. Like, for it to be any less dramatic, they like couldn't have made it an episode of reality TV at all.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's a 1. I think probably the low of the season. was this episode.
Yeah, because Grant's going to have to start breaking stuff. Like, there could have been a touch more drama if Dina had cared at all when she got dumped.
Exactly.
And I think the next woman that he dumps might have a few more feelings about it. So I think the feelings are going to start flowing.
And women tell all, we know there's going to be drama because while Dina might not have strong feelings about Grant, I think she definitely does about Carolina.
I'm penciling that in at a 9. We'll see.
On that note, that is it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by Hannah Dickinson. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, spread the word to all of your friends about Love to See It and our just enlightening, sparkling coverage of both The Bachelor and Love is Blind.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter, Rich Text, on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey, Eric Donnelly, Aaron Constantino, Matt Casey, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, Carly Snyder, and Hillary Shoup.
We'll be back later this week with the finale of Love is Blind Season 8, and then, of course, next week with Grant's Women Tell All.
Can you keep